My sister-in-law offered to sleep with me because my wife is pregnant, but she underestimated what my wife could do in that state, and my sister-in-law's face paid the price. To give a bit of context, my wife and I are both 26 years old and have been happily married for 4 wonderful years. We met in college, and it was love at first sight. She is the most incredible woman I have ever met. Smart, funny, compassionate, and beautiful inside and out. We've built a life together, and now we're expecting our first child. We're both excited and scared at the same time, but we know that together, we can handle anything. I'm saying all this so you understand that there is no way I would ever cheat on her. The problem is her younger sister. She's 22, and to be honest, she's always been a nuisance to us. Since I first met my wife, her sister has been a toxic presence in our lives. At first, I thought it was just a phase of teenage rebellion, but as the years have gone by, it's only gotten worse. There's always been a kind of rivalry between them. My sister-in-law seems to be jealous of my wife for everything. Her career, our relationship, and even their parents' attention. She's made hurtful comments about my wife's appearance, tried to sabotage her professional achievements, and even attempted to cause problems in our relationship on multiple occasions. I remember once, shortly after we got engaged, my sister-in-law accidentally, in quotes, spilled red wine on my wife's wedding dress during a fitting. My wife was devastated, but her sister just shrugged and said, "Oops, how clumsy of me." We had to rush to find another dress at the last minute. On another occasion, during our engagement party, my sister-in-law gave a speech that was more a series of veiled insults than a celebration of our union. She talked about how my wife finally found someone who could put up with her, and how I was a saint for marrying her. My wife tried to keep her composure, but I could see the pain in her eyes, as well as her anger. That night, after everyone left, my wife took her to the kitchen, where they exchanged some harsh words, but mainly, my wife scolded her. Over the years, there have also been times when my sister-in-law has been inappropriate with me. I didn't give it much thought, as I only saw her as my wife's little sister. But over time, it became more evident that she was crossing boundaries. There were suggestive comments, accidental physical touches, and some strange looks from her. I remember one Christmas in particular at a relative's house a couple of years ago when the whole family was gathered. My sister-in-law had drunk too much eggnog and started making comments about how I was too good for her sister and how she could show me a good time. I had to walk away from the situation, and my wife ended up having a huge fight with her. The festivities were ruined, and we spent the rest of the holidays in a hotel. I've always tried to keep things civil for my wife's sake. I know how much her sister's behavior hurts her, but I also know that deep down, she loves her sister and hopes that one day they can have a normal relationship. I've tried to set clear boundaries and maintain a respectful distance, but it's as if my sister-in-law sees this as a challenge. Now, with my wife's pregnancy, things have reached a new level of craziness. My wife is in her second trimester and has had some complications. The morning sickness has been brutal, and she's had to cut back on her work hours. We're handling the situation as best we can, supporting each other, and preparing for our baby's arrival, but it's been challenging, especially for her, both physically and mentally. So she hasn't been in the best mood lately, which makes the situation I'm in even worse. A few hours ago, I received a text message from my sister-in-law that left me stunned. It said, "Hey, I know my sister is going through a lot with the pregnancy and probably isn't very available to you right now. I want you to know that I'm here for you if you need any kind of support, physical or emotional. It could be our little secret." I stared at my phone for what felt like an eternity, unable to believe what I was reading. Was my sister-in-law really offering to have an affair with me? Right when her sister, my wife, is pregnant with our first child. I didn't respond to the message. In fact, I blocked her number immediately. But now I find myself in an impossible situation. I know I have to tell my wife. I can't keep a secret like this, especially when it involves her own sister. But I also know that this news will devastate her. My wife is already dealing with so much stress because of the pregnancy. She's worried about how she'll be as a mother, whether we can manage our finances with a baby, and how she'll balance her career with motherhood, not to mention that it hasn't been an easy pregnancy. The last thing she needs is to find out that her own sister has offered to sleep with her husband. Part of me wants to confront my sister-in-law directly and tell her that what she did is completely unacceptable, but I also know that could make things worse. I love my wife more than anything in this world, and I know I would never, ever consider cheating on her, especially with her sister. I have to tell my wife because if I don't, my sister-in-law might get nervous since I haven't responded to her message and create a lie. I've thought about talking to my in-laws about this, but I know that would only cause more family drama. Plus, in the past, they've tended to downplay my sister-in-law's behavior, saying things like, "That's just how she is," or "She's just seeking attention." I'm not sure they really understand the seriousness of the situation. What worries me the most is how this will affect my wife and our baby. Stress isn't good during pregnancy, and I'm afraid that this news could have negative consequences for her health and the baby's. How do you tell the woman you love, who is carrying your child, that her own sister is trying to seduce you? I need to find a way to handle this situation that protects my wife and our baby, but also addresses the problem at its root. I can't let this continue. I'm going to wait until tomorrow to make a decision. That's why I'm writing this now, to see what advice this Reddit community can offer me. Has anyone gone through something similar? Should I involve the rest of the family, or try to handle this privately? Update 1. It's very early in the morning as I write this, and I got up so early because, frankly, I barely slept. I spent the night going over everything that happened, and this morning, the first thing I did was go through all the comments and private messages that were sent to me. I can't express how much that means to me right now, so I want to thank you all for that. Honestly, I never thought so many people would take the time to read my story and offer their suggestions, especially in such a short time. I'm amazed by the supportive community here. After spending a sleepless night mentally reviewing how to approach the situation, I finally decided to tell her as soon as she woke up. I got up early, much earlier than usual, and went straight to the kitchen. I made coffee and sat down to wait while reading the comments on my post. Every minute felt like an eternity. I was there, alone, in silence, imagining all the possible reactions my wife could have. Finally, I heard her get up and head towards the kitchen. When she came in, she smiled, half asleep, and wished me good morning. I smiled back, but I know there must have been something in my expression that alerted her that something was wrong. She asked me if I was okay, and without beating around the bush, I told her that we needed to talk. I asked her to sit down, and at that moment, I felt the knot in my stomach tighten even more. I started by telling her that I had received a message the night before, and when I showed her my phone, I could see the confusion in her eyes as she read it. She couldn't believe what she was seeing, not because she doubted me, but because she couldn't believe her own sister could do something so low, especially at such a vulnerable time for us. "I can't believe she did this," was the first thing she said after a few seconds. I explained how I had spent the entire night thinking about how to tell her, how the thought of adding more stress to her right now had tormented me, but that I couldn't keep something like this from her. My wife was silent for a moment, processing everything. Finally, she told me that she needed some time to take it all in, but that we would talk more about it when she got back from work. She's been working fewer hours because of the pregnancy, so I knew I wouldn't have to wait long for us to talk about it again. Before she left, she hugged me and thanked me for my honesty. It was a moment of relief and pain at the same time. Relief because she understood that my intention was never to hide anything from her, and pain because I knew she was hurt, not just by what happened, but by what this meant for her relationship with her sister. Now I'm writing this from work because we both left the house after our conversation. She told me that when she gets home this afternoon, she's going to call her parents and talk to them very seriously. I hope to have more news about all of this later tonight or tomorrow, and I hope I can sleep better tonight, which I really need. Update 2. First of all, I have to say that last night I had the best night's sleep in a long time. I guess releasing the tension of everything that's happened helped me sleep like a baby. My wife also contributed to that, if you know what I mean. I think my sister-in-law was very wrong about certain things. Anyway, it's been a day since my last update, and while some things have improved, others have worsened again. I know many of you are waiting for news, so here's what has happened. As I mentioned earlier, my wife and I decided it was necessary to talk to her parents about what her sister had done. After receiving that message, my wife was determined to confront the situation directly, and we both agreed that it would be best to inform her parents as soon as possible. That same afternoon, after getting home from work, my wife gathered her courage and made the call. From the start, the call was tense. My in-laws are reasonable people, but they're also very protective of their daughters, which is understandable. My wife calmly explained everything. She told them about the message her sister sent and how I showed it to her immediately. She also sent them a screenshot of the message so they could see exactly what my sister-in-law had written. Although my in-laws don't live with her, they were visibly upset and disappointed by what she had done. However, as the conversation progressed, it was clear they were trying to balance their anger with their desire to understand the whole situation. My wife tried to be as clear as possible. After talking for a while, my in-laws assured us they would talk to their daughter later that night and get back to us afterward to tell us how the conversation went. The wait was agonizing. My wife was restless, and I tried to keep myself busy to avoid giving in to anxiety. We both knew the conversation with her sister could go in any direction. This morning, as promised, my in-laws called my wife. She answered and put the call on speaker so we could both listen, but what they told us was not what we expected to hear. My in-laws talked to my sister-in-law, and according to them, she told them a completely different version of events. She claimed that I had been sending her messages for a while, and that she had simply let herself be seduced. She said that the screenshot we had sent only showed the last message, but that before that, there had been a conversation where, according to her, I was the one provoking the situation. My sister-in-law told them that I must have deleted those messages to make her look bad, and that it seemed like I was trying to manipulate the situation in my favor. When I heard this, I was speechless. I couldn't believe the audacity of my sister-in-law to invent such a twisted story. What hurt the most was the uncertainty I noticed in my in-laws' voices. They didn't know who to believe. On one hand, they were angry with my sister-in-law for sending that inappropriate message, but on the other hand, they seemed to consider the possibility that I had been flirting with her. My wife told them that if that were true, her sister should have screenshots of those supposed messages. My in-laws thought the same and asked her, but my sister-in-law responded that she had deleted them because she was afraid someone would read them. My wife and I believe this excuse is too convenient. Despite everything, my wife didn't waver. She told them firmly that she trusts me and knows I would never do something like that. She reiterated that I was the one who showed her the message immediately and that I had been completely honest from the beginning. She asked them not to let her sister try to twist the situation and instead focus on the seriousness of what she had done. My in-laws, still confused, ended the call by promising that they would continue trying to clarify the situation and that they would talk more with their daughter to get to the bottom of it. After hanging up, my wife hugged me and told me that no matter what her parents or sister said, she knew in her heart that I was telling the truth. She said she trusted me completely and wouldn't let this situation come between us. Her words gave me some peace in the midst of all this mess, but I can't deny that I feel frustrated and worried about how everything has unfolded. I don't want to have problems with my in-laws over this cruel joke or whatever my sister-in-law did, especially when I've always gotten along well with them. After discussing it a bit more, I told my wife that I think it would be best for both of us to go see her parents in person. I don't want this situation to be handled solely through phone calls or messages. I think we need to sit down together, face to face, and talk about what's happening. It's important that her parents see our unity and honesty firsthand. I also believe that this way, we can directly address my sister-in-law's lies and try to dispel any doubts that may remain in their minds. My wife agrees, and we've decided that tomorrow we'll go see her parents. We know it will be a difficult conversation, but we also know it's necessary. We don't want my sister-in-law to keep doing what she's doing or start spreading rumors without our side of the story. The worst part is that this morning I felt calmer after talking to my wife and getting a good night's sleep, but now all the worries have resurfaced. I'll likely provide another update after we talk to my in-laws tomorrow. Update 3. I'm here to share what happened after our last update. Several things have occurred at my in-laws' house, and I'd like to fill you in on the details. Things continue to escalate, not so much for me, but they haven't calmed down either. This afternoon, we arrived at my in-laws' house, and I must admit that despite everything that had happened, they received us quite warmly. I was expecting a cold or distant reception, but fortunately, that wasn't the case. My father-in-law, who had been the most skeptical about my version of events, apologized to me as soon as we arrived. He told me that after thinking things through, he realized there was no way I could have done what my sister-in-law had claimed. He acknowledged that I've always been a good son-in-law to them, unlike his daughter, who has always been a bit spoiled and problematic. It was a relief to hear that, and it made me feel like at least we had the support of an important part of this situation. Even so, we wanted to give our version of events face-to-face to make everything clear. But after a while, my in-laws told us that it was no longer necessary to share more details, as our version was the most logical and their daughter's was hardly believable. Nevertheless, they decided they wanted to speak directly with my sister-in-law to clarify everything and put an end to the matter right then. They asked us to stay a little longer at their house, as they planned to call her over immediately. I was aware that my sister-in-law might refuse the invitation if she knew we were there, but my father-in-law assured me he wouldn't mention that part. My father-in-law made the call and asked my sister-in-law to come over, without mentioning that we were present. An hour later, my sister-in-law arrived and was visibly surprised to see all of us sitting in the kitchen. The tension in the room was palpable. My sister-in-law, visibly confused, asked what was going on. My in-laws demanded that she explain everything and asked for proof that I had been the one to start seducing her. She responded that she didn't have any proof since she had deleted the messages, but I stepped in to tell her to stop lying. I clarified that I had almost never sent her messages and that I had never been inappropriate with her. As the conversation grew more heated, my sister-in-law said something that escalated things further. She claimed that it wasn't her fault if my wife couldn't give her husband what he needed. She suggested that, just like with her, I had probably tried to seduce other women. She was being unpleasant and said it in a tone that was disgusting. My wife, who was sitting next to me, surprisingly quickly for a pregnant woman, got up and slapped my sister-in-law in the face. I was stunned to see what was happening and rushed to intervene to prevent the situation from getting worse and to make sure my wife didn't hurt herself or put the baby at risk. My father-in-law also got up and asked my sister-in-law to leave. When he noticed that my sister-in-law was bleeding from her nose, he handed her a napkin and again asked her to leave. After my sister-in-law left, we stayed at my in-laws' house for a while to let my wife calm down. My father-in-law, looking for at least a small distraction amid the chaos, ordered some pizzas for us to eat before we headed home. It was a small break during a difficult evening. Finally, we returned home, and the day has been emotionally exhausting. The situation with my sister-in-law and the tension with my in-laws hasn't been easy to handle. I'm not sure how things will continue from here. I hope to have more news soon, and I promise to keep you all updated if there are any new developments. Update 4. I'm back with a new update on the situation. It's been several days since our last post, and while things have calmed down a bit, they are still complicated. But now that you know my sister-in-law better, I don't think you expected things to stop being complicated with her. After the tense meeting at my in-laws' house, things seem to be heading in a clearer direction, but my sister-in-law's social media unleashed a new wave of drama. The afternoon after our meeting, my sister-in-law posted a photo on Facebook showing her face with a visibly swollen nose. In the post, she claimed that her sister, my wife, had hit her for telling the truth about my supposed infidelity. According to her, the punch was a reaction to her brave revelation that I had been flirting with her and was a womanizer. When my wife saw the post, she couldn't stay silent. She decided to respond with solid evidence. She commented on the photo with an image of the message my sister-in-law had sent me, the same one she had shown to her parents. My wife's comment read, "I hit you because you're a bitch who can't find a man who isn't taken." The comment aimed to make it clear that my sister-in-law was lying and that the punch was a reaction to the accusations, not to a supposed revelation. Shortly after my wife's comment, my sister-in-law's account went private. Additionally, she removed the photo. Apparently, she started receiving a flood of harassment messages. People were telling her she was the bad one, and even calling her names for the damage she was causing to our family with her lies. It seems things got so bad that she decided to hide and temporarily close her account. As a result of this situation, my wife, my in-laws, and I have received a lot of messages from relatives and friends. Everyone has offered their support and mostly wanted to know the truth of the situation. Fortunately, most have shown understanding and sympathy towards us, and it seems that no one has taken my sister-in-law's side. It's been a relief to see that people are willing to listen before taking a stance. My father-in-law, in particular, has taken a very firm stance. After learning about the lies my sister-in-law had posted, he called her directly to confront her. He told her that her actions were unbecoming of someone with values and were affecting not just her sister but the whole family. He emphasized that she was creating unnecessary drama and needed to acknowledge her mistake. He gave her an ultimatum. If she wasn't willing to apologize, both to me and my wife, and make amends, then she better not show her face around the house. Personally, I feel a bit bad about everything that has happened. I never wanted to be in the middle of such a public family dispute, but I am deeply grateful for the support I've received, especially from my wife and my in-laws. My mother-in-law, in particular, has been a ray of light in this storm. She baked me a pecan pie, my favorite, because she knows how much I love it. It's been a gesture that has brought some comfort amidst this complicated situation. Edit. It's been almost 2 months since the last major event. My sister-in-law still hasn't apologized to anyone, neither to my wife, nor to me, nor to my in-laws. She hasn't been invited to family events, like birthdays or gatherings. My wife is handling the pregnancy as best as she can and is in good health. Although the situation isn't ideal, we've at least been able to find some normalcy amidst the chaos.